It's the new Jennifer Angels podcast, our first episode. I'm Juliana. I introduced myself back in our Angels introduction episode, but anyhow, I'm a Loreto High School senior and I'm 18 years old.
And I'm Ann Franco, and I'm also a co-host this week. I'm a junior at Loreto High School, and I'm 17 years old.
Hey, I am Andrea Palm, a senior. Go Seniors! At Loreto High School, and I am 17 years old.
And finally, it's me, Aaron Setliff, the Division Chief of the Protective Order Unit at the County Attorney's Office. And I pull a privilege and withhold my grade and my age, okay? So, friends, what have y'all been up to since mock trial, since our intro episode?
Nothing much, just keeping our grades up and going to school every day.
Me and Andrea were just at and Juliana, sorry. We're just at the speech and debate regional championship.
National.
Yeah. At the nationals, we were like the national qualifier. So the people who won were going to Richmond, Virginia. So that's pretty cool.
And so are you going to Richmond, Virginia?
Yes, I won the championship.
Wow.
I did too.
Wow,
I did not.
But we did get district sweepstakes for, we got like the highest like points overall in debate. So Juliana was part of that.
That's amazing. So I'm looking for my invitation in the mail. It'll come in snail mail? No? Probably.
Yes, it will.
So, okay, well, that sounds like good activity. So I'm super excited to start on our first official episode with the brilliant Dr. Elizabeth Richeson. And let's remind people how the podcast is going to go in case you forgot.
So Aaron will be the permanent host, but there will be a roving band of young people acting as co-hosts, including Andrea, Juliana, and me.
And I've heard there will be a couple surprise co-hosts along the way too. That's what we call in the business a teaser.
To tune in every week to find out who. Anyhow, each episode, Aaron and the young person will share interview duties.
Yeah, nobody's going to get confused that I'm one of the young people that are like that. That'll be super clear. So, yeah, but I definitely plan to turn the tables on the co-hosts to hear their point of view along the way also.
And don't forget about the last segment, Gamers Corner, Hot Tip from a Teacher, or Angels on the Street.
Okay, I think I'm here in the podcast universe saying, yeah, we got it. We're clear, just get started. So let's do that. So today we have my friend and co-founder of Jennifer Ann's group, Dr. Elizabeth Richeson. She's a clinical psychologist in private practice. Dr. Richeson is an active public speaker, both locally and nationally, on a variety of topics, and she holds a special place for the topic of teen dating violence prevention. Betty chairs the Jennifer Ann's Group Advisory Board and its Speakers Bureau. An adventurer at heart, she's lived abroad and as of now has visited, get this, 89 countries, mostly pursuing off-the-beaten-path experiences. The greater the challenge, the greater the delight. So welcome, Dr. Richeson.
Well, thank you. I am so excited with this. I'm excited about the whole concept and what you all have already accomplished and what I'm hearing from these bright young people, maybe not as young, but certainly bright Aaron. And
Okay,
I'm
I'll
glad,
take that.
look forward to all of this. And the format sounds fantastic.
Awesome. And I get the pleasure of asking you the first question. So who are you?
Wow, that's the hardest question of all, and I could take up the whole time just talking about that. But the bottom line is, as a clinical psychologist, I certainly pursued that because I see myself as a very, a person who's really very, very dedicated to something. When I get involved in something, I'm very dedicated, I'm very compassionate, and I'm very passionate about things. And I have been someone who really cared a great deal about people and being able to help them. And that's what led me down the path of being a psychologist. And the whole issue of teen dating violence, I certainly was working at that with patients individually and learning about it from my patients. And never did I imagine that I would be in the role of having this be such a personal part of my life. So Jennifer Ann Crecente is my granddaughter, and losing her, certainly, I can't even use all the words that I would need to use to express how that impacted my life. But we were very close. She was a very passionate and compassionate person. Her plan was to follow in my footsteps as a psychologist. And I honestly think that that's part of what caused some danger in her life, wanting to help people. And I say that because that does tie into me. Wanting to help other people is a good thing, but wanting to help other people that don't want to be helped or that are people that are, I guess, dangerous people, even we might not know that, that's an important thing. So, who I am is someone who wants to help, and I want to help with Jennifer Ann's group because I also want to help keep young people safe. And I do have to say one little piece about that. When we help other people and young people understand these issues and the dangers and whatnot, we're also working toward helping people as adults to identify these risks better.
Hey, Anne, can I do a follow up? Am I allowed during your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. She's like, you're allowed. Hey, Dr. Richeson. So, you're a longtime El Pasoan too, right?
A long time.
And then you talked about Jennifer Ann. Did she live in El Paso? Any part of what you want to share about her experience and that's formed you or made you?
Sure. So she lived in El Paso for her first about 6 years and then moved to other places in Texas. And I will tell you one thing that I got on one of the state boards in order to have a reason to go to Austin once a month so that we could spend good quality time together. So she then lived in, I think Austin was the only other place that she lived. She lived briefly, I think, in Houston and maybe briefly in San Antonio. I'm not sure because there were a couple of different moves, but ultimately lived and was murdered in Austin. But yeah, a long time in El Paso, a profound amount of outreach in El Paso for Jennifer Ann's group. We do a fundraiser here, but we really do a lot because in person lectures are obviously available more readily in El Paso.
Yeah, co-hosts, I just have to tell you, if anyone has heard about teen dating violence or Jennifer Ann's group in El Paso, they directly and completely know that it's Dr. Richeson involved. She's always involved and advocating for the last 22 years on the topic. I saw you, Juliana, gonna say something?
Yes, I was going to ask, just wondering, besides fundraising, what kind of other events do you guys hold so that people are more in communion with this or get information about this kind of topic?
It's a great question. We do have a youth summit that we co sponsor, and that's coming up in March. Can't remember the date off the top of my head, near the end of this month. Yeah, it's held over at Rio Vista Behavioral Health. And basically, I do a presentation to youth, and then we have someone that presents to parents if they're interested. And there's a lot of activities and a lot of other things that they learn about. But yeah, we want to get the word out as much as we can. And even though sometimes it's tied into fundraising, we just held an event over at P.F. Chang's restaurant. And what we did there is we had information set out. We had things that we hand out, like our bookmarks. We have things that we talk to people about, like the video games. So as they're coming in, even though they're there, P.F. Chang's was the one that's donating to us, but people's presence is the thing that's, kind of contributes to that.
That's great. That's great.
So those are our follow-up questions to the first question, but we have another one, right, Andrea?
Yes, I actually have a question. So, how have you helped boys and girls develop a healthy self image?
Well, I hope that I do it in a lot of different ways. And one of the things that I think for all of us is that we have to be good role models too. Because, I don't think that I can tell someone that they should or shouldn't do something or encourage them to change some of the things they're doing if I'm not willing to be that model. And so, it's a responsibility that I think we have in this profession as well as other professions to be good role models. And so that's part of it. And then the other thing is really just to be able to have the kind of relationship that people are willing to talk to you. I'm a good listener, and I really love talking to people of all ages. 40, I'm sorry, 40, yeah, 40 years plus of being a psychologist. I do a lot of individual therapy, and I do work with a lot of youth. And so when I'm working with young people, I want them to understand it's safe to talk to me. Part of that is confidentiality to the extent that I'm allowed to give that. And I say that because there's some, limits to that. But on the other side of that is just to be able to say, "Hey, I'm not going to be your boss. I'm not going to demand that you do this or that, but I'm going to say, well, if you do this and this has happened, what are the alternatives if you want a different outcome? So to put it back on people, and again, to listen to that, help redirect if necessary. But I don't know, I really feel a connection with people of all ages, and I love working with adolescents and young adults.
So, Richeson, we kind of asked the question, assuming we all know what this means, but what is a healthy self image for a young person?
That's a very good question, too. So, a healthy self image would be that I can see what my needs and wants are separate from another person. Because I think a lot of times what happens, and especially in dysfunctional relationships, that it's so closely tied in with what the other person wants. So, in other words, I kind of forget who I am in order to please you or in order to not lose you. And so that I'm going down a path sometimes that I don't want to go down. And I think about all the things that I've heard over the years. I could give you lots of examples of people who really lost themselves. And that could include actually older people too. Is it more of a female issue? Yes. Is it a male issue ever? Absolutely. And so we know that anyone in their sort of desperate need to be accepted, to be in a relationship, they will put up who they are, give off who they are. And it could be the way they dress. It could be, well, one of the questions I used to ask when I would talk to these are adult groups, and I would talk to groups of people in codependent issue, over caring for others, under caring for self. And I always ask the question when we started, okay, if someone says to you, where would you like to eat tonight, dear? The whole group always knew the answer. And the answer was, I don't care, wherever you would like to eat. And that's a teeny, teeny issue where you go to eat. But what happens if you answer that way to everything that's important to you in your life? What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to live your life? How about do you want to have sex or not? It doesn't matter the question. The question is, am I true to myself? And that's what makes it so important. I have to be true to myself, and that makes me healthier.
So I get the next question. It may sound to listeners like I've had all the questions, but no. So my question is the part where I get to turn to my co-hosts and ask them their thoughts on challenges that they've had in developing or keeping a positive self-image. And so I see Juliana is unmuted. So I wonder if you could go first, and then Andrea
Yeah.
and Anne, if you don't mind.
For sure. I think a lot of what we as a youth really struggle with in self image is a big part of playing in comparison. Dr. Richeson talked about negative commentary, but sometimes I would say that this ideal of you're not going to be successful, you're not going to be amazing, and all these things comes from a place from us constantly comparing ourselves and how we see success in others. So I think because of that, a lot of people do begin to kind of start redacting kind of in their behavior and deciding not to take part in certain things because they already have this comparison that they're going to have to deal with people that are better than them. And because of that, there's a lot of lack of care, a lot of lack of action due to that comparison.
Yeah, I totally agree with Juliana. I also think a lot of us do struggle with that. Like, I know I have always like struggled with compares, like, or seeing people or like seeing someone that, has something like that I don't and I want to be like them. And it's a hard thing to deal with. And I think it's something that teens deal with overall and probably will experience in their lives. Something I also think is like hearing negative comments about yourself or like, it all starts with gossip. I've heard things about myself through gossip, goes through girl to girl. When you hear something, it like kind of stays with you always. Like I've had a few, comments that are like, oh my gosh, like you can't get out of your head. But that's something I think teens do struggle with a lot as well.
Unfortunately, as young women, I know, like, I bet, like, all of us, like me, Juliana, and Andrea, going to Loretto, especially towards like freshman, underclassmen years, like there's always gossip. And, so I think, and I know for me, I also do struggle with comparison, whether that be from looks or to intelligence. Like I'm like, okay, this person, I have to be like this. I have to have their amount of grades. I have to, do my hair this way. I have to get this certain kind of glasses instead of like really acknowledging what you truly want. I think in that kind of process, you kind of lose yourself. But I also think like what kind of I remind myself as well is that whenever I think, oh, I'm not, oh, I'm dumb, or I'm not, I'm fat, or whatever, all these like negative comments, it's like you wouldn't say that to really somebody else. Like, you know what I mean? You might think that, but like you obviously you would not say that to somebody else. And just as you wouldn't say that to somebody else, you shouldn't tell yourself that. So I kind of see that. And like even when I see like, pictures of me from like when I was in middle school or elementary school, like I would never tell a 12-year-old like, ooh, you have buck teeth. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like you really need to treat yourself as like as a human as you would see other people because you're at the same level.
I'm writing all this down, ladies. Such smart perspectives. I really appreciate it. Okay, so then we have one more question, right, Juliana?
Yes, I have the last question. So, how would you help all girls and boys as they grow up to participate in healthy relationships? So, I'm going to go ahead and answer this one first, and then I'll pass it on to you, Miss Richeson. So, touching on what we talked about earlier, I think a lot of what has to do with the way that we begin to build relationships with other people is absolutely our relationship with ourselves, understanding what we value, what we won't accept, and what we will accept from others. But I think a key factor is also trying to really know who you're going to build that relationship with. Especially in dating, right? You want to look at your partner and you want to be able to make sure that they're trustworthy or that they don't treat other people rudely. I mean, we always use that example about take them to a restaurant and see how they treat the waitress, right? And I think examples like that are really important because that's how you start beginning to have this window to see into this person's actual actions, their thought process. And because of that, you can begin to think, okay, this is a relationship I want to pursue, or no, this isn't a relationship that's going to work for me because it doesn't align with my values and what I do and don't accept. And I think that because of that, healthy relationships can be curated, or we can decide to make a healthy choice and not pursue that relationship.
The question?
So, how would you help all girls and boys as they grow up to participate in healthy relationships?
And this is the wave the magic wand. So no
Yes.
cost is not an issue. No
Okay.
barriers.
Well, I honestly think that, oh, there's so many wands that I'd want to have, especially magic ones. But there's a couple of things because I would want, first of all, that people stop making excuses for bad behavior. You talk about taking someone to a restaurant and see how they treat the wait staff. That's a great example. But what happens a lot of times with low self esteem or the neediness to be in a relationship is that, well, she would not have done that except that they had a bad night the day before and they had a test they didn't do well in. So that's why. That's not who they really are. So there's a lot of excusing that goes on. And sometimes the excuses get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I see that in all age relationships. Well, she again wouldn't do it except that they had maybe one drink too many as an adult, or whatever was going on in their life. So lots and lots and lots of excuses. And I think that you've got to first and foremost recognize that you cannot continue to excuse behaviors. Maybe you can have a rule for yourself. I even wonder if you should say, well, one time's okay. It depends on the degree to which someone does something. Because if it's really a bad overstep, I don't know that you should even think that once is okay. One slap is never okay. And by the way, one slap inevitably leads to 2 and 10. You don't think that that's okay ever. The other thing is just to recognize that you have to look at your value so that you don't keep thinking about the other person's value or the context of the value of the relationship. But you've got to really kind of keep looking at the big. So if I could wave a magic wand, I would make sure that people not fall back to excusing other people's behavior, that they come back to what I said earlier, which is that they really truly could understand their worth and so that they don't tolerate all this stuff. But how do you wave a magic wand about those things? And you can start with early education in helping people understand all of those things, because those are fundamental things. And I do think that parents do the best thing they can. I mean, all of them do the best they can. Some jobs are much worse than others in terms of what they kind of pull off. But, you've got to understand that we need the foundational education on with anything. It could be the video games, which you'll hear more about. It could be with all of the stuff that we do to try to help other people see what is a good relationship, what is a bad relationship. But fundamentally, you have to have that foundation. Where the other part I have to say, then we should also have a magic wand that makes sure that every parental group, every parent group is a good role model. Because when you don't have a good role model at home, you might think that horrifically bad relationship of arguing or throwing things or screaming things is normal and acceptable. So there's a lot of magic wands I'd want. And if I could only have one, that would be rough, but I want a bunch.
I have some magic wand kind of stuff going on. And I don't know if it's the Harry Potter kind of magic wands where you have to have a different one to do all sorts of different stuff, or it's just one big wand. If I could wave a magic wand, I would have everyone be a feminist. And that doesn't mean that you hate men or men are bad or any of that kind of thing. It's a way of looking at the world where you think through gender norms and sexuality in a nuanced way, is the way I'm defining feminism, and one that takes seriously a woman's place in the world, femininity as a positive thing and not a negative thing, all those kinds of things. So I'd wave the magic wand to make us all feminists. I would redefine healthy masculinity and help men become the kind of men that we all deserve, not just women deserve, but that their own selves deserve. And so I'd turn that on its head if I could to foster healthy masculinity. And the third magic wand, so it's the same wand, but third thing I'm doing with it is I would have everyone listen to this podcast. I think I'm maybe overstating it just a little bit, but a lot of what we're all of us trying to accomplish, we talk through today. And if they start the conversation and listen to the kinds of things that we're talking about and actually put them into practice, that would be a really amazing start. So those would be my magic wand.
Can I give one postscript?
Yes, let's do it.
I just wanted to say that one of the things that I look at, and I can look at this for myself as well as anybody else, but just because someone goes up to you and says, "You are so stupid, you're so ugly," we used all those horrible examples earlier, it doesn't make it so. And we've got to understand that just because someone thinks that you don't have to even imagine there's reality to it. And so that comes back to when I can feel good enough about myself, I can let all that stuff just roll away.
Well, I think we got to the end of our questions, didn't we, co-hosts?
Yes, I think
we
so
did.
too.
Did you have anything you want to follow up with? Any last thoughts, co-hosts?
Just thank you. I think what you do is just truly amazing, and it really does make a difference.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you. I think this podcast is going to help a lot of young teenagers who are struggling and who are scared to reach out. And I hope by them listening to this and listening to you speak, I think it'll help a lot of teenagers and young adults, maybe seek help or understand everything we talked about, and hopefully, like, they have a new mindset.
And I just want to say I really admire your courageousness and your braveness to take, something that you really struggled with and something that was hard for you and made it so beautiful that has impacted many other people and will continue to do so. And I hope that through our conversation today, we've given you another outlet to be able to continue on your mission.
Well, thank you to the angels.
Welcome to Jennifer Angel's podcast. I'm Drew Crecente with Jennifer Ann's group, and in today's Gamers Corner, I'm sharing an exciting program called Gaming Against Violence. This program from Jennifer Ann's group combines the power of video games with social and emotional learning to create positive impacts on young people's lives. At its core, Gaming Against Violence produces and publishes nonviolent video games designed to reduce violence. But how does this work? Well, the games aren't just for entertainment. They are intentionally designed to teach valuable life skills. Skills like communication, critical thinking, healthy relationships, and resilience. Research has shown intentionally designed video games can influence behavior. By embedding social and emotional learning principles into interactive experiences, the games allow players to practice healthy responses in a safe, virtual environment. The games are engaging, fun, and most importantly, impactful. They help teens reflect on their own actions and build stronger emotional intelligence, all while providing an entertaining and immersive experience. As many of us know, adolescence is a time when emotions run high and peer relationships can be complex. Unfortunately, this period can also be a time when conflict escalates into violence. This program aims to break that cycle by providing teens with tools and strategies to help them deal with conflict peacefully. Instead of simply telling teens what to do, these games allow them to experience the consequences of their actions, which makes the lessons stick. The idea is to empower teens to make healthier choices when faced with difficult situations in real life. These games are not just for kids who are dating, they're for all teens. By reaching young people before issues escalate, Gaming Against Violence aims to foster a generation better equipped to handle stress and challenges without resorting to violent behavior. For educators, parents, and teens themselves, Gaming Against Violence is a creative, engaging solution to very real problems. This program is where entertainment meets real-world impact, teaching teens not only how to handle conflict, but also how to build a better future for themselves and their communities. Visit gamingagainstviolence.org for more information.
Now, I just want to give a special thanks to Jennifer Ann's group for supporting this project. And if anyone wants to know more about the amazing teen dating violence prevention work that Jennifer Ann's group does, to head to jenniferann.org to find out more and then follow the Facebook and Instagram as well.